Oh, howdy all, grab yourselves a beer. It is time for some Path of Exile discussion, and today I wanted to talk about bound fossils. Bound fossils and how to use them. Now, bound fossils are on their own, i.e. in a one-socket resonator. They function as a chaos orb or an alchemy orb that is biased. And what that means is that it is more likely to roll minion and aura-related mods, and in addition it adds a number of new minion or aura-themed mods into the pool of what can roll. But fundamentally, it scrambles the mods on the item, so just like a Chaos Orb, but biases them towards these rolls. Now, these can be combined with other fossils, both to increase the chances of desirable combinations of mods and to eliminate undesired rolls. But what I want to do is go through in depth what they do and how you can use them, what items you should consider using them on. So firstly, as we're saying, they add a suite of new aura mods and minion mods. And I want to go through every mod that they can add. These are all listed on the Path of Exile wiki, and they're also listed on PoEDB, which is a data mined information site. I'll put links to both of those in the video description. And in addition, they bias towards aura and minion mods. Now, there's a lot of speculation, and I can't verify this source, but Path of Exile wiki states that using this fossil multiplies the spawn weights of all modifiers with minion tags by 10, and also with aura tags by 10. So I can't vouch for this being correct, but I'm just going to accept that it is. Now, this applies both to good minion rolls. So for example, +3 to the level of socketed minion gems is a very good minion roll that appears on item level 86 and above helmets. But it also applies to undesired minion and aura rolls, such as the +1 version of the aforementioned +3 to socketed minion gems roll, which is generally an undesirable roll. I mean, you'll use it while you're leveling, but it's not something that you're particularly keen to get. Now, just a quick thing on the maths of it. 10 times the weighting is not 10 times the probability, but it is close to it for low probability events. So if you've got a 1% chance to hit a desired roll, you can see that as being 1 chance to hit and 99 to miss. What this does is it takes it to 10 chances to hit and 99 to miss, which is 10 in 109 chance to hit your desired roll, which is approximately 9.2%. So you see it's not quite 10 times, but it's pretty close. But if your chance to hit is 10%, so you've got 10 chances to hit and 90 to miss, this becomes 100 to hit and 90 to miss, which is about 53%. Or if you've got a 70% chance to hit, you go from 70 in 100 to 700 in 730, which is about 96%, which is nowhere near 10 times 70%. So keep that in mind. I like to think of it as, imagine you're entering a raffle and you have a choice between buying 1 ticket and buying 10 tickets. If 20 other people have bought raffle tickets, when you buy 1 ticket, you've got a 1 in 21 chance of winning first prize. If you buy 10, you have a 10 in 30 chance because you're actually diluting the odds of any individual ticket winning by purchasing more of them. And so that's something bound fossils do. One other thing that's important, bound fossils, unlike I believe every other fossil that biases rolls, does not eliminate any rolls, nor does it make anything less likely to roll. Except by the fact that the bound fossil mods, the minion mods now crowd out some of the space for the others. But it doesn't outright eliminate rolls the way that, for instance, a frigid fossil makes it impossible to roll any fire mods on the item. So none of that happens. Now let's have a quick look through the unique modifiers, the ones that you can only get through using a bound fossil, potentially in conjunction with other fossils, but possibly on its own as well. So first up, we have the aura suffix. Aura suffix that is available on weapons. So what this does is it grants auras from your skills grant 2% increased damage to you and to your allies. This is a pretty niche mod. It's pretty low powered, and it's 4% if it's on a two-hander as well. This is a pretty niche mod. It's not very powerful, but on an aura bot that has 10 or more auras active, it's somewhat meaningful to add 20% increased damage on a one-hander, 40% on a two-hander, but generally speaking, aura support characters will be using the Prism Guardian shield in their offhand, and as a result will not be able to, will not have any position, not have any capability to use the two-handed version of this. So ultimately, I think this is a pretty undesirable roll. It's not something. It's something that you'll usually want to roll over. But if you need it yourself because you're playing an aura support character, then by all means consider it. There is, however, a sort of special case interaction where this can be a little better, and that is if you're playing a minion and aura hybrid build, like a lot of necromancer builds can be, then you can get a fair bit of benefit from using this in conjunction with a glyphic fossil. Glyphic fossils are very rare, and they add a corrupt essence modifier to an item. The combination of glyphic and bound fossils together heavily bias in favor of rolling the Essence of Insanity mod, which is socketed. When socketed weapon is equipped, you have level 20 summon spectral wolves, and those spectral wolves will then get all of your auras and get a little extra bonus from this as well. So that's the one niche use case for this mod, but broadly speaking, I think it's a pretty weak mod. Next up, we have the weapon prefix for minions, and this is really, really strong. This has two particular uses, and I'll just note here that there are 4 tiers of this mod. So if you're using a one-handed weapon, tier 1, 30 to 44%, tier 2, 45 to 59, tier 3, 60 to 74, and tier 4, which is the top tier, 75 to 80%. Now, one thing that's important, if you have a look at the spawn weightings that are listed here, and these are data mined from the game files, you'll see that on a one-handed weapon, you have 2,000 for tiers 1 and 2, and only 1,000 for tier 3, only 500 for tier 4. That means that if you roll this mod, it is biased towards getting the weaker tiers, as you won't see the stronger tiers very often. And that's important because of one of the niche use cases of this. Now, there are 2 ways that you can use this mod. The first is the obvious one, and that is to boost the damage that minions that you summon do. This isn't very good with Herald of Agony due to its scaling, but for most other minion skills, such as summon skeletons, this is really, really strong, and it's something you may wish to consider using. However, there is a second use case for this that is really important, and that is in conjunction with the Spiritual Aid. Special passive tree node. Now, what this does is it causes the player to be affected by increases and reductions to minion damage. And this is something that's found over in the Templar section of the tree. It was added back when Herald of Purity and Herald of Agony were added to the game, but mostly with the intention of being used in 3.4.5, was used in conjunction with the Herald of Purity gem. That was the thematic idea. However, the key use for Spiritual Aid, and something that it does that's really special, is it provides a way to amp up the damage caused by Herald of Ice and Herald of Thunder. These are 2 very powerful skills that are very, 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 very hard to scale normally. And this allows you to get a massive 75 to 80% increased Herald of Ice damage on a one-handed weapon. This is an incredible, incredible roll, and is actually the most powerful use case of bound fossils on weapons. One quick point to make here is that this has higher roll numbers for two-handers, but you are better off using 2 one-handers here. You'll see that, let's assume you're trying to boost Herald of Ice. You get 75 to 80% on each of 2 weapons. That's 150 to 160%, biased towards 155. Contrast this to if you get the single top tier roll on a two-hander, you're only getting 111 to 130. In fact, you would be better off with 2 of the second tier roll, one on each of your one-handed weapons, than to have 1 of the top tier roll on a two-hander, and the two-hander roll, top tier roll, is pretty rare. Now, the best case scenario for this configuration is to get a Val Ice Nova weapon that has been crafted with a Bloodstained and a Bound Fossil, and that picks up a high tier of this roll. That'll be an absolutely incredible item, because your Herald of Ice chain reactions will deal considerably more damage. Your Vaal Ice Nova itself will get the bonus from this minion buff, and so you'll be able to do an enormous amount of additional damage with this configuration. But Bloodstained Fossils are extremely rare, and most of the time you will not be rolling these juicy top 2 tiers. You will be instead getting the mediocre lower tiers, or not rolling this roll at all. So that's an expensive project you might want to take on if you're looking for something to spend currency on, but otherwise it's not something you're that likely to hit. Now let's talk about the Gloves prefix. The Gloves prefix adds 20 to 30% minion damage onto a slot that doesn't normally roll it. The problem is that 20 to 30% just isn't very much. I'm not really high on this roll. I don't think it's great. It's something, yeah, by all means use it if you really want to, but I think you'll find it's just a pretty disappointing roll in general. So I wouldn't be rolling Bound Fossils onto Gloves. Now we have the Quiver, Ring, and Amulet move speed roll. So this is here. It's only available on item level 74 and higher. So that this number here is the item level that's required for these mods to appear, and 15 to 30% increased movement speed for minions is really strong. However, you can do better than this already with a Deafening Essence of Fear. Deafening Essence of Fear will provide you 27 to 30%. So it's in the same region, but it's biased higher, and so you're much more likely to get a good roll with the Deafening Essence of Fear. This is a really solid roll for most minion builds. It's deceptive how much time minions spend walking around rather than attacking. And this fixes that for you, especially if you can get it on a lot of slots. What I would suggest you do here is craft your basic gear by using Bound Fossils when you just get into maps. If you're playing a minion build, throw Bound Fossils onto these items till you get a reasonable amount of minion movement speed. But then later on, don't look to use this to craft your forever gear on your character. This will be stepping stone gear, nothing more than that. Next up, we have the very disappointing Minion Maximum Life roll that is on body armors, shields, and belts. Minion Maximum Life is okay. It is extraordinary on one specific use case, which is minion instability builds, where that considerably adds to the damage output of your character. But for general cases, you probably don't want this roll. And so that means you will not be using Bound Fossils on shields or belts most of the time, unless you fit that niche use case of a minion instability build. Body armor will come back to later because there's something else that can roll there, and that something else is very good, and I am leaving the good rolls to last. Well, actually, I'm just going down from top to bottom, but the good rolls happen to be at the end. Next up, we have the Spectre roll on boots. This is potentially very powerful, but it's also very niche. If you're not a Spectre build, if you're playing any sort of other minion character, then you gain basically nothing, well, you gain absolutely nothing from this. But if you're a Spectre build, you pretty much, this is so strong that you probably should not consider any boots that don't have them. The other thing that's quite good here is that movement speed being the best defense in the game, you are probably going to want 35% movement speed on any set of boots that you use at the very end game, and 30% for most of your time in maps at least, until you can source a 35% set. Because Bound Fossils are so cheap, you don't even need to go to the expense of using Shuddering Fossils. You can just keep spamming an item with Bound Fossils until you get this and the top tier of movement speed that is available at your current character level. So that's something that is potentially really good. It's also really easy to roll this. 2000 is a pretty high weighting. You'll get this really fast, and it will serve you well if you need it. If you're not a Spectre character, then don't consider using Bound Fossils on boots because they will do nothing for you. They will just result in you often rolling a completely useless suffix that could have been a good resist for your build. Now next up we have the big chest mod. This is a really deceptively powerful mod. What we're talking here is 20 to 25% increased effect of auras on you. Now this affects auras that you receive from other players, and it affects things that are coded as auras that don't feel like auras to you. So, if you're playing with an aura support, what this is going to give you is at least